This is the second part of the improvers first session. So we're going to look at this computer sales inventory, and we've looked at this before in the beginners course, but we're going to take it a little bit further. So first of all, we're going to change the unit price, put them into currency. So we've just highlighted the cells up to here, change to currency. Now what we're going to do is look at the total. So the total equals the quantity sold multiplied by the unit price. Press enter. That gives us our total there, and you notice that it's gone straight away to currency. Double click to autofill, and it's now put the price in. We're now going to look at this reorder, and we're going to reorder based on two criteria. We're going to reorder based on if the item is popular, or if the stock level is lower or equal to, or if the stock level is lower than the reorder level, okay, or equal to the reorder level. So in here, we're going to use an if or function. So that's going to be equals if, open brackets, or, open brackets. And our logical test is if this cell is less than or equal to the reorder level. So that's the logical test 1. The logical test 2 is if this cell equals, and we have to use quotation marks here, yes, close brackets, comma, and what's the value if that is true? Well, the value if that is true is we're going to reorder, and the value of that is false is no, we're not going to reorder. Close brackets, press enter, and there we go. So we're not going to reorder, and then we can then double click and pass that down, or fill there. So what will happen is now if I change this to yes, if it's popular, the reorder then should come up, and we can see that it's come up. So let's just undo that. Or if I change this to 14, we can see that it's come up to reorder then. Now what we're going to do is do the reorder cost, but really I've looked at the reorder cost and said that here I've used an if or function, when really all I need to use is an if function based on whether I'm going to reorder or not. So that is going to be equals if this cell equals yes. Well, what's the value if that's true? Well, the value if that's true is we're going to multiply the reorder level multiplied by the unit price. So that's the first thing we're going to do. And the value if it's false is I'm going to use 2 speech marks. And what that will do is it will put a blank. It won't put a 0, and it will put a blank in that cell, which will make it empty. So as you can see, it's put a blank in there, which is what we want. But if I now double click that autofill the formula, it will then put the values in for me. So I know what I'm going to reorder and the cost of the reorder. So if I now, and you can see that these cells they haven't got the zeros in or anything, which is what we wanted, we just want them blank. But if I change this to reorder, say I want this as popular, that will now change that to reorder, which will then give me a reorder cost, and you can see that that happens there. So that's quite handy. So rather than, you can do an if or function, but that was me just trying to be clever, I suppose. We can use some if here as well. Some if the laptops, and some pending if we needed to do. But what I've done here is I've extracted and made this a unique list. Imagine I've got this list in here, and I could have all sorts of different computer items. But rather than go through each one and find out how many unique items I've got, I've just put a unique function in here and highlighted what they are. So let me just show you this again. So this equals unique, open brackets, and I've got the array, which is this here, and I'm going to highlight these all the way down to the bottom. And this is why it's better being in a table. Close brackets, press enter, and we can see that now it's spilled all them unique characters here. If we look at the sum function, what I've done is I've put a sum function in here. I've summed up all the items that are laptops, what the unit price is, and it's given me a total value of what the unit price is of all the ones where it's laptops in there. Let's just change these to currency. And sum pending, let's have a look what I've done here. I've looked at the different status. I've used the sum ifs function and said, well, we're going to sum this range here, the criteria range is here. We're going to look at the B2, which is laptops. The criteria range is this one here. And then we're going to look for ones that are pending. So we're going to sum all the ones that are pending there. And this is, we're just messed about doing different things there. So let's just have a look and see what that is for the mouse then. So this equals sum if. So the range is there. Okay. So that's the range. The criteria, so a comma, the criteria is a mouse. Oh, let's just like that. The criteria is a mouse, so I'm just going to select the mouse. And then the sum range is here. So this is just to demonstrate, really. Close brackets, press enter, and we can see now that we've got a sum range, all the mouse come up there. Sum pending for the mouse, well, that's equals sum ifs. And the sum range is different now. The sum range is here. And I know it's not strictly true, but we're just showing this, okay? The criteria that we're looking for. Okay, the criteria that we're looking for, the criteria range is here, comma. Now we're looking for the criteria, and the criteria is a mouse, comma. Now we're looking for criteria range 2. Well, that's here. Okay. Comma. And what we're looking for is the range, the criteria is pending. So we'll go back up to the top so they're all together. And there we go. And we can see that, and I can now put a close brackets, press enter. We've got 1,693. However, if I was to look at this differently, I could say, rather than the unit price, I could put the total, which would probably be more realistic, really. It would be how much are we waiting for the total sales for pending, sort of like how many sales are pending waiting for the mouse, which is probably a little bit more realistic. And likewise for the sum, rather than the unit price, we're probably better off summing the total price. So I've just moved, all I've done is I've just moved that from there to there. Press enter, and that gives us 25,000, which is probably more realistic actually. So there's different things that you can do there. If we look at this. I've now turned this into a table, and tables are far more beneficial for you. Actually, you can do a lot more with them, a lot more. And on here, it gives you like the 3 main advantages. I use this for Copilot to get this 3 main advantages of using Excel. So dynamic reference and auto expanding of data, which is very handy. Automatic formula fill down, calculate column, and built-in tools for analysis and visibility. So let's just start this again. We fill this in. I'm going to make a copy of this. So I'm just going to right click on there, move or copy, computer sales inventory. I'm going to create a copy, click OK, and you can see that a copy has now come up. And I'm going to change that, and I'm going to call it computer sales. Let's just call it a table. Okay. And I'm going to put that down there so I can start again here. I'm going to get rid of this. Let's move these. I'm going to get rid of, let's just move these up there. Okay. To get this into a table, I just press the Control and the T, and Excel will automatically select the table for me. It says my table's got headers. Alternatively, I could just click in the first cell, format as a table, choose which one I want, so that one, and it will give me this information there, and click OK. And now it's formatted that as a table for me, and that gives me far more scope, because you can do pivot tables from your data that's not formatted as a table, but it just probably makes it a little bit easier to do it from an Excel table. We can give this a table name, and I'm going to say shop inv. Okay, center, and that's I've given that. Now, if I was to click anywhere there, if I go to insert, I can insert my pivot table, or I could use recommended pivot table. I'm just going to insert pivot table there. It's going to give me an option. I can use an existing worksheet or a new worksheet. I'm going to use a new worksheet, and you can see it's picked this up for me. And now I've gone on a new worksheet somewhere. Sheet 2. I'm going to move that to there and call it. I'm going to call this the dashboard. And it's allowed me to use different things. So let's say we've got the product, and then we want a sum of the product, and there's different things that we could use. We could also say if it's popular, or values for popular. No, let's get rid of that. Okay, so we've got the sum of the total. We could use the stock levels. Okay, and we could use the status as well. So let's put the status there. And so there's different things that you can use. So completed, pending, cancelled, completed, pending, cancelled. Sum of total, sum of stock. So let's just get rid of the sum of the stock, so we don't need that. So that's probably a little bit better. It gives us the item, the how much we've had that's cancelled, how much is pending, completed, and then how much is pending, and then our total sales there for us. And if we wanted to, we could move that down there. Okay. If we wanted to now, you can see that we've got some pivot table tools. We can analyze, or we could design, and we can choose different things that we need to do. I'm going to insert a slicer here, and let's insert a slicer from the total, and we'll put that in there. That's a rubbish one, so we'll get rid of that one. Let's insert a slicer from the status, which is probably better. And the slicer will allow us now to decide. Let's get rid of these, move these down a little bit. Will allow us to then have a look and see what's cancelled, have a look and see what's completed, have a look and see what's pending. And it's just like a filter mechanism, but it's just easier. I can click that, and there we go. If I wanted to, I could now add a chart there, pivot table, so we can put a pivot table chart in there. There we go. And it gives us a different one that we can use there. So let's just use a column, but maybe, yeah, a column chart. A bar chart, but going that way. I think that's probably better. And that gives us a chart that we can use here. Sum of the total. And the good thing about this is if I now alter any of these, this chart will automatically update. And I just do that, and we can see that it gives us that instant thing that's there. So hopefully we can play around a little bit more with that. We can make the dashboard a little bit better. You'll see that on this one, all I've done is just made the row 1 a little bit wider, and then put computer sales in there. I've just put some the same pivot table there. I've also put the quantity of the stock. The beauty of this though is if I now click into completed, click into keyboard there, it will then take me to each particular one that's been done. I think that's very handy. Right, I hope you found that useful, and there'll be more that we'll be doing on